നാരായണഗുരോः ദർശനമാല. അധ്യാരോപ ദർശനം.
ആസീദഗ്രേ അസദേവേദം ഭുവനം സ്വപ്നവത് പുനഃ സസർജ സർവം സങ്കൽപ്പമാത്രേണ പരമേശ്വരഃ.
In the beginning, there was non-existence indeed. Dream-wise then again, by mere willing. Everything existent created he, the Lord Supreme. In the beginning, that is, at its upper limit which has to be distinguished together with other similar limits, there was non-existence. Posteriorly to this, in Purana, the Supreme Lord, Paramesvara, when creation was to begin, by his mere willing created all this, that is, gave it a conceptual status different from what was merely nominal, just as in the case of a dream, having its own virtuality within consciousness. The stuff that dreams are made of is admittedly unreal to the extent that they belong to the world of ideas. In the same manner the world can be said to be unreal to the extent that its stuff is of the same order as his will. Whatever reality there was at this limiting point can be attributed to the Supreme Lord, rather than to his creation. The Taittiriya Upanishad supports this twofold point of view. The world as objectively manifested apart from the Lord was there equated to nothing, tentatively accepting the principle of contradiction between existence and non-existence. In Vedantic parlance the upper limit set by the Termiga, before creation or in the beginning, corresponds to the paramarthika or ultimate reality, that is, the vertical, while Puna, thereafter, refers to the Vyavaharika or workaday practical reality, that is, the horizontal. It should be noted that according to Sanskrit convention a work of this kind has to indicate the subject matter, and also imply something by way of adoring the most high value of the Absolute. This requirement is only tacitly fulfilled by virtue of his beginning the very first verse with the letter A, which, according to the Bhagavad Gita 10.33, is equated with the Absolute, among syllabic letters L, that is, the Absolute, and the A. The first word of the verse moreover, refers to something existing, because the word asat suggests something existent, in the ontological sense of sat. Because of referring to sat, this word, occupying the very first position in the verse, can also be considered as fulfilling the requirements of an auspicious beginning required by the same convention referred to above. Moreover, the verse later on equates existence with the Supreme Lord, and further confirms and complies with this same requirement.
Vasanamayamevaadau asididamath prabhuः asrijanmayaya swasya mayavivakilam jagat.
In the beginning, in the form of incipient memory factors. All this remained. Then the Lord, by his own power of false presentiment, like a magician, created all this world of change. At inception this visible world was in the form of vasanas, incipient memory factors. Thereafter, the great Lord, by his power, which was of a non-existent, or merely conceptual order, after the manner of a magician, created all this phenomenal universe. Before creation this world had merely the status of pure samskaras, deeper perceptive masses in consciousness. The Sankalpa, willing, mentioned in the previous verse is only an active version of the same Vishnu. At the time of creation the Lord created all this by his illusory power. This is like the magician, who while remaining all alone is able to make us believe there are multitudes of other things around him. There is in reality nothing apart from the magician, who is capable of manifesting visible things. Actual entities are not there, but only entities having the status of memory factors are not to be considered real. In the same way, there is nothing in the universe which is other than the Lord. What is in the Lord is only a certain power of specification or qualification called Maya, the principle of false presentiment, having no real existence of its own. By the example of the magician, it has been shown that the phenomenal world is false.
Pragutpatteridam swasmin vilinamath vaiswatah Bijadanguravat swasya shaktireva srijat swayam.
This world, before creation, was latent within himself. Thereafter, like a sprout from seed. From himself, by his power, by itself it was created. Before creation this world was only potentially present in the Lord. Thereafter, at the time of creation, his power, which was in him by its own self-potence, created all this manifested world like a sprout from a seed. This power is capable of shrinking into nothingness, as well as expanding into elaborate sets of manifested entities. It is only the potent virtual entity which is present within the seed and is capable of manifesting itself as sprout, stem, branch, leaf, flower or fruit. Likewise, it is a potent power within the Lord who created this world. But the Lord is not subject to any process of becoming. It is that power alone, which is dependent on him, that can be transformed, vikara, and is capable of creating this world.
Shaktistu dvividha jñeya taijasi tamasi cha sahavaso anayornasti tejasti mirayoriva.
The power, however, as of two kinds is to be known, as the bright and the dark. There is no coexistence between these two. As with light and darkness. The aforesaid power of the Lord, however, is to be understood in two distinct ways. First, as Tajasi, or belonging to the light, that is, heliotropic, and, secondly, as Tamasi, as belonging to darkness, that is, geotropic. We can divide the specificatory power of the Lord into two ambivalent divisions referring respectively to light, tejas, and darkness, tamas. Light and darkness cannot coexist. It is the same with these two ambivalent and specificatory factors or powers of the Lord.
Mano matramidam chitram Ivagre sarvamidrisham prapayamasa vaichitrim Bhagavan chitrakaaravat.
In the beginning, this world, which was in the form of mind stuff, like a picture, achieved with all this picturesque variety. Like an artist, the Lord. The terms Sankalpa, willing, Vishnu, incipient memory factor, and Sakti, potent power, have been employed so as to be considered equivalent, vertically, each in itself, to the mind, manas, which occupies the central position in this verse. This world was merely of a mental status before creation. Just as an artist creates in respect of his painting, so the Lord also accomplished all this artistic variety, seen in the world. Before creation, this world remained in the form of virtual mind stuff. If it should be asked how, we say, it remained like a picture in the mind of an artist, before the picture was accomplished. In the same way it was in the mind, manas, or the willing, sankalpa, of the Lord that all this potentially resided. It is possible for an artist to produce works of art with many and varied elaborations or varieties. In short, the entire manifested world is only an artistic expression of the mind of the Lord.
Asit prakritirevedam yathadau yoga vaibhavaha vyatanodata yogiva siddhijalam jagatpatihi.
Potentially, what even as nature remained like the psychic powers of yoga. Like a yogi did he, the Lord of the world, work out his varied psychic powers thereafter. In the beginning the world was prakriti, nature, having the same status as the psychic powers of a yogi, mystic of unitive inner experience. Thereafter, at the time of creation, the Lord made manifest his own nature in the same way as a yogi makes manifest his powers. The psychic powers of a yogi are in reality only incipient memory factors within himself. What we meant here by prakriti only refers to tendencies capable of functioning as contraction or expansion, which could be merely mental in status, or, otherwise stated, it is mind itself which is referred to as none other than prakriti, as we should here understand. All the manifold manifested powers of a yogi are only innate tendencies in his mind, belonging to his own nature, and later on to be expanded and elaborately manifested. In the same way it is prakriti that is virtually present in terms of mind stuff, that becomes transformed into this expanded universe as presented to our vision. What has been discussed so far under the terms of sankalpa, willing, vasana, incipient memory factor, sakti, potent specifying power, manas, mind, and prakriti, nature, have one and the same meaning. The term avidya, nescience, to be used in the next verse, also falls into the same verticalized series. It is possible to refer to this same factor in many other ways. In view of simplicity and for the students, apodictic, clarity and understanding, we have merely followed a graded series of terms with different designations.
Yadatma vidya sankochastada avidya bhayangaram nama rupatmanatyartham vibhatiha pishachavat.
When self-knowledge shrinks, then prevails nescience fearful, ghost-like, taking name and form. In most terrible fashion looms here. In this verse it is pointed out how, because of the absence of right knowledge, avidya, about the self, all beings find creation to have a terrifying aspect. When such knowledge is absent, then nescience lends support to the appearance of name and form, nama rupa. This plurality of name and form entities seem ghost-like in a most terrifying fashion, presenting themselves as appearances. It is only because there is lack of self-knowledge, atma-vidya, that the whole of the universe seems to be the seat of all fear and suffering. When the correct knowledge about the self prevails, all apparent sufferings and their sources, in the world, disappear. There will not be any cessation of suffering until one realizes the true knowledge resulting from the realization of one's own self. Self-knowledge is the most superior of all means for release. In the same way as in cooking the only means is fire, or heat, so there is no salvation without self-knowledge. This is what Sankaracharya has taught. By this verse the man who is desirous of getting release from suffering, resulting from lack of self-knowledge, is to be considered an adhikari, a person fit to study this science, and that the subject matter of this present work is Atmavidya, the science of the self. Furthermore, between Atmavidya and this work there is the relation of subject matter and object matter. The final release from suffering due to nescience and the attainment of the goal of full self-knowledge is the aim and utility of this work as required by Sanskrit convention. Suffering and ignorance apply not only to people in this world but to all created beings, whether seen or unseen, wherever they be in the universe. In principle this applies to all of them. It is to be remembered that, even the creation undertaken by the Lord involves the same wonderful and terrifying elements of this very kind.
Bhayangaramidam shunyam Vetālanagaram yatha Tathaiva Vishwamakhilam Vyakarodadbhutam Vibhuhu.
Terrible and empty of content. Like a city infernal. Even as such a marvel. Did the Lord make the whole universe? This visible world is just like an infernal city, empty of content, sunya, and terrible, bhayankaram, in this most wonderful manner, with visible and invisible aspects referring to all possible worlds created by the Lord. Because the Lord is all-powerful and capable of accomplishing anything, he was able to create something which had no basis in reality, but still could be seen as a wonderful appearance, because it is at once empty of content and terrible, though describable as a marvel, adbhuta. The term vibhu employed in the verses refers to the omnipresence, omnipotence, and everlasting eternity of the Lord. 6. Before, and ba, what exists, because it existed before, it is called vibhu.
Arkadyatha-kramam vishwam tatha naivedamaatmanah supteriva pradurasit yugapat swasya vikshaya.
If from a sun in graded succession this world came, such was not the case at all. Presented as if out of slumber. At one stroke, all came to be. If it be said that this world came to be in gradual steps out of a primordial sun, we say it is not so at all. From the self, as if from sleep, all come into being at one stroke. There is a traditional belief that there was an original sun, and from that sun, by successive steps the universe was produced, the sky was produced, and from the sky the atmosphere, from the atmosphere the fire, from the fire the water, and from the water the earth. This view is not correct. This world with all its features that we experience in practical life came by the willing of the self out of the self, coming out together all at once. Before creation, the self had the character of being itself or alone, kavalam. When one wakes from deep sleep, sushupti, the whole world becomes presented all together. In the same way, at the time of creation, by dint of the will of the self, all is manifested together, and projected from out of the self. There is also the Upanishadic dictum which says, "The one self thought, let me be many." By this verse the theory of gradual creation, kramasrishti, is repudiated, and that of instantaneous creation, yugapad srishti, is upheld. What is implied herein is that the power of the Lord is so great that it could create all this world at one stroke.
Dhanadivavato yasmat pradurasididam jagat sa brahma sa shivo vishnu sa para sarvayeva saha. Sa brahma sa shivo vishnu sa para sarvayeva saha.
He from whom, like a fig tree is from seed, came out this world manifested. He is Brahma, he is Shiva and Vishnu. He is the ultimate, everything is he indeed. Just as from a minute seed a large fig tree arises, so too, that Lord from whom this whole wonderful universe became manifested. He is Brahma, he is Vishnu, he is Shiva, he is the Supreme Self, Paramatma, and he is everything indeed. By this Brahma, the creator, in the Vedic context, of the Vedic gods, Indra and Varuna and others, as well as Vishnu who is the lord of the Vaishnavas and Shiva who is the lord of the Saivits, and the Supreme Self of the Vedantins, are all treated as one and the same. Because of this reference to the threefold gods, Trimurti, it is indicated that this world originates from the same Lord having this threefold character, and that it originates in him, endures in him and dissolves into him once again. Further, by the statement that he is everything, it is affirmed that there is no world outside of the Lord. It further states that by the words, Sapara, that is, he is the ultimate, it is indicated that the Lord is not subject to any kind of transformation, vikara, and that he is without any kind of specific attributes, being himself the Supreme Self. The world is only seemingly present in the Lord, and it is indicated that the instrumental and material causes, nimitta karana and upadana karana, are none other than the Lord. In fact, the attribution, wrongly thought of, by the mind of the phenomenal aspect to that which is non-phenomenal, is what is referred to as superimposition or supposed position, characterizing this chapter called Adhyaaropa. All gurus, spiritual teachers, and sastras, texts, are known traditionally to indicate and take an initial supposed position, in respect of their subject matter, before giving instruction about the attributeless absolute, Nirguna Brahman. Following the same tradition, the section on Adhyaaropa has now been terminated. In the next vision of truth, Darsana, the Apavada, that is, neutralizing this supposition, is to be dealt with.